Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome.
Are they more prepared, or are they just kind of I don't know. I would feel the last time. I got a call because there's somebody nosebleeds. I'm sick, crying, just because they didn't get my breakfast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this. No. I do, but that hit me because there's and the water bottle spilled and there's a huge puddle outside the door and then I'm thinking that it's gonna fall and the phone's ringing and I didn't start teaching. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. So just don't get upset and it's not done.
Hey, Eric. How are you? Hey, I want you to come up when we start. You okay? Okay, I think we're going to get started, everyone. It's about that time. First of all, thank you so much for being here. You could be any place in the world, any place in Pittsburgh, but you're here today. We thank you for that. We respect that. We appreciate you of that as well. So thank you for being here. We truly mean it. And today we have a very exciting topic. We have women leaders in STEM education, and I have assembled the A team of STEM leaders within this area in Pittsburgh for you, from higher ed to the classroom and beyond. And I'm so excited. To me, this is such a passionate topic for me. I have a daughter, and basically when it comes to STEM education, if STEM education is not for all, then STEM education should be not made at all. So it needs to be brought to everyone's attention, and today I have an exciting panel that's going to talk a lot about what they do in STEM education, how they get people involved in STEM education, and even way beyond that. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to introduce the panel right now. I'm going to have my friend Norton back there get the light for me. If you know me, you know. All right. So we first of all have good music. All right, here we go. There we go. Good. All right, so introducing first to the panel here, we have from Hopewell School District. She is a world famous author. Her books are up on the screen from Amazon if you'd like to purchase any of those on Amazon. An international keynote speaker, an assistant superintendent, and just an amazing, amazing person to get to meet, Dr. J.C. Maslick. Yes, give it up for J.C. Next we have from Riverview School District, again, world famous social media icon, an author. Her books are up there. If you notice, she almost has 25,000 followers on Twitter, so hopefully we can get up there this panel. And consultant, educator, just a rock star, world traveler, Rochelle Both, everybody. Next we have, skipping one down, we have from Montour Elementary School, second grade teacher, fan of Snoopy the dog and Snoop Dogg, both of them. A person I get to see every day teach in the classroom, one of the most respected people that I get to see every day, Miss Alyssa Kidd. We have with us in the middle, like starting center in the middle, we have from California University of Pennsylvania, Diane Fine is assistant professor and coordinator of integrated STEM education program, focuses on preparing teachers and graduate students for the next generation of STEM learners, Dr. Diane Fine. And last but not least, you may have seen her this morning as we have with us the Pennsylvania Innovator of the Year this morning awarded at the P&C Conference. English teacher, Montour High School, Keystone Integrator, and so much more, Miss Gina Ligori. All right. Thank you, Norton. And here you go. They're never going to be on a panel again with me. That's it, Ace. We're done. All right, so we're going to get started with some questions here. Again, we're very excited to have this panel join us today. So we're going to go down the line. We're just going to give questions out, and they're going to have time to interact back and forth with each other, and also have questions for you at the end in case you have any questions for the panel. So my first question goes to JC. JC, as you heard, author, keynote speaker, amazing educator, and has done so much in the world of STEM education. My first question, JC, some people say, oh, you wrote the book on that, ha ha ha, but you actually did write the book on All In, Unlock Creativity, Remake Literacy, STEAM Makers, Connect to Lead. Why should educators go all in and unlock creativity or foster creativity and innovation in schools today?
Well, first let me just say thank you. Thank you for assembling such a great group. We're lucky to be here today and happy to talk with all of you. Can I just see a show of hands? How many people are from or close to Pittsburgh? So lots of people. I feel like anytime people ask me questions like this, I feel like we're really lucky to be in the place that we are. I feel like this is a region that is continuing to grow and evolve, and I feel that's why I've been able to be innovative as an educator. I think that's probably a strand that you'll hear today. I mean, we have a great support system that really lifts up this kind of learning. So if you're not from Pittsburgh, you should probably move here. Or at the least, you should look up Remake Learning, because I think that is initially how a lot of us got connected to start with. But part of the learning for me, I think, really boils down to the 4 C's, or however many C's you believe in, that creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. Those things in classrooms are what drive educational change. So a lot of what I've written about in my books really boils down to those things. You can unleash creativity in students, but also in teachers. And so in my role as an assistant superintendent, not only do I feel a responsibility for developing that learning at the classroom level for students, but I also have a great responsibility to do that for teachers. And sometimes getting teachers to step outside the box and think innovatively can be a challenge. So it's great to see so many of you here who are embracing technology and finding ways to use that in your space. When I talk to educators about doing that work, I think it really comes down to 3 things. Are you willing to fuel curiosity in your classroom? So for you, for students, what do you do to make sure that curiosity is always ongoing? Is it in the materials that you provide to students? Is it in the environment that you create? I think once you start fueling that, you have to be willing to take risks. again, at the student level and at the teacher level. If I don't have a teacher that is willing to take risks and try new things, then what's that message that's being sent to my students? So I'm looking for that risk taker, those people who are ready to take a gamble and take a chance on something maybe a little unconventional in the classroom, whether that's with technology or without technology. And lastly, making connections. One of the ways that I believe we can create long-lasting learning is when we make connections. So connections peer-to-peer in the classroom, connections for teachers with their global professional learning network, but also taking especially the STEM learning that you're trying to drive in your classroom and connecting with partners out in the community, whether that's higher education, corporations, other school districts. Those connections are what lets students know that learning is going to expand beyond the school walls, and that it's going to be something that could be potentially a career pathway in the future, and really allow them to explore things that they're passionate about.
Wow. You just wrote another book there. Awesome. JC,
Would
that's
you like
amazing.
to co-author?
No,
Okay.
not at all. No, JC, thank you so much. We're going to actually pass the microphone down to Rochelle there. We're going to come back to some other questions later. Rochelle, you travel around the country. You just came back from London, from BET. Actually, last time the three of us saw each other was in South Beach, Miami at the FETC. But you travel a lot, and you get to see all these amazing things, and you get to, you write about these things in your book, like Unconventional, The Future is Now. You're an expert in a lot of those things. So my question to you is, what are some trending STEM areas that we should, as educators, focus on in the classroom? Because sometimes there's so much out there. What are some things coming up in the future that we can narrow down the focus on to really create equity, too, amongst all students and educators?
That is a huge question.
Well, you got this.
No, but it's funny, like I teach Spanish and STEAM, and whenever I do presentations at conferences, a lot of the topics when I first started to present, and I never wanted to do any presenting years ago, but my students in my classes were getting nervous about coming in front of the classroom and speaking in front of their peers, and it hit me one day, I'm like, I don't even want to speak in front of my own colleagues in professional development. So I started to do these different conferences and get out there and learn more. And then in my school, we got a grant to have like a STEAM space. And being a Spanish teacher, I was the A in arts. And so that's how I got into this. A lot of times I talk about artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality. They're like, what is the Spanish teacher doing with those topics? And so that's what the connecting piece was. But I think for a long time, and I was thinking about this yesterday as well, is like, STEM, we often just thought of what it stood for, right? What the letter, the S, the T, the E, the M, and then now we hear like STEAM and STREAM. There are so many variations on it.
Yeah.
Hamster?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did not know that one.
Everything.
What's the H?
Humanities.
Oh, okay, I was going to say horticulture.
That's hamster square.
But I think a part of it is like a lot of teachers, and I was one of them, didn't think that STEM applied to me. I was like, I'm a Spanish teacher, I don't have anything to do with that. But then doing some research the last couple of weeks, one of the things that I read was like, STEM, it's not just specific to those areas, it's like preparing for life, and it's giving every student, even of course educators, the skills that they need. And another thing that I read, I do a lot of reading, was talking about like, you can't say anymore like, oh, I'm not good with computers. Like, you just can't. Like years ago, how many times have you ever said, I'm not good with tech, I'm not good with computers? We can't get by with that anymore because there's so much technology. And in my classroom, of course I want my students to know Spanish, but I need to give them other skills. And so part of those skills, like JC mentioned, whether you go with the 4 C's, I've seen the 5 C's, the 7 C's, but there are a lot of other skills that we need to help them build. And so for STEM, it's really about giving them opportunities, at least in my experience, that help them to build the collaboration, communication, creativity, problem solving, also tying in like the social emotional learning skills with those. And so things that I've seen work really well for me have been project-based learning, which ties nicely into STEM. Also with STEM, a lot of research is being done to show like social emotional learning skills as well for students, because they're going through the process, they're struggling, they're becoming self-aware, they're reflecting on it, plus they're building communication, collaboration, all those other skills that they need to help them make progress for the future and experience that like productive struggle. And of course we can look at maker spaces. Sometimes you talk about like equity, there are so many things out there and it can be overwhelming, like where do I start? Or we don't have the funding to get these resources. And so when you look at organizations like Remote Learning that offers programs, ABC Create has different places where you can get materials sent in and lend also being a connected educator and just asking your friend, hey, like, I just saw a merge cube down the hall in Z's fashion show. Like, does anybody have a merge cube that I can use in my classroom? Just, even if you don't have enough for every single student, if you have like 3 or 4 opportunities where you can use stations and get students up and moving, because we know another part of it is like we want them to be social and moving around the classroom. Another area, computational thinking. I just did the ISTE course on computational thinking, and I thought, that doesn't apply to me. And then I took the course, and I had to write a lesson plan for my Spanish class. I'm like, how in the world do I do that? I struggled a ton working with algorithms, and it boggles my mind how much we can do with technology today. And you know, Justin, like, I wish I could come to your session at 3:30 on artificial intelligence. That's another area that you can get students talking about. Like,
You still can.
I can't. My session's at 3:30. And I got a little bit of AI, but I'd like to actually come to yours. So if we were door by door, I'd probably like listening through. But all of these topics, so you got like artificial intelligence, AR, VR, the coding, you know, just down in Z session 2. You got Bird Brain Technologies with all of those products that they have coming out, giving students a chance where they can kind of interact. Build peer learning skills also is important, especially for the future. But working on projects together and building a lot of those skills, like JC mentioned, 4 Cs, however you want to focus on those, but also like innovating. I think a lot of the trends too now are saying like, oh, well, artificial intelligence is going to replace all of these jobs. Okay, well, it's going to replace some, and there is a thing out there that if you look at it, teachers, like the percentage of likelihood that it's going to replace teachers, it's like not very high. But other things like financial advisors or those types, but when it comes down to it, it's humans that are going to be programming those things. And so it's going to become like our duty to help our students understand them. So all of those, I just threw a lot of topics out there.
No, that's
but
good.
it went from where I thought it was just those topics and that it was very narrow focus to being like it's a world full of opportunities. You just have to pick one and find out, you know, what it can do for students. And if it doesn't work, that's okay because we're learning in the process too.
Awesome. That is a lot of stuff. A
lot
of
so
good
sorry.
stuff. No, it's a lot of great stuff. No, we appreciate it.
You ask me a question and I get excited about
I know, and that's why I asked that question, because you know what's good. We're going to come back to you later, Rochelle, but I'm going to pass it down to Alyssa Kidd. And Alyssa, you know, I'm really fortunate. So my role is I'm a director of academic achievement and district innovation at Montour, is a fancy name for curriculum director. And I get to work with Alyssa every single day and walk by her classroom. She's always doing something creative with her students. She came to me last spring and said, hey, I got these ideas for my classroom on furniture. Can I do some different things? And just always one of those teachers, you just, as you're walking by, you just want to pop in sometimes. I wonder what she's doing today, just because you're so excited to see it. So, Alyssa, my question to you, and I know you have some slides I'm going to present up here too to help kind of show some pictures, but I'm going to ask you the question first. How do you promote STEM learning in the classroom at an early age, because she is a 2nd grade teacher, and why is that so important to really teach STEM at that young age? I'm going to pop your slides up here as you start. Let me see, I don't think I started at the beginning of it. Let me go back up. There you go. All right, go for it.
All right, I need to talk about STEM. That was part of my question. But I'm going to do it through Legos, something that I love and use a lot in my classroom. Students learn through self-discovery. I actually have a Lego wall in my room. I was lucky enough, the one principal we had loved Legos too. But you can get special glue and get the base plates, and the kids love it. They have the people coming out, building on the wall. There's always something neat. They leave me notes. I usually have other bins too with wooden blocks or different shapes. So when they come in the morning, they can build anything they want, use any material that they like to use. And I did want to mention too, our PTA did a Lego drive, and they collected a lot, so that does help. It's because they're very expensive, so that's something you may want to look into with that.
And all you have to do is send a letter home to the parents.
Right, right.
Tired of stepping on old Lego pieces?
That's
we
right.
have the place for you to send them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Next, teachers. They foster critical thinking skills. I'm sorry, I'm not able to.
Yeah. I'll help you out through problem solving and elementary STEM education.
Yes, and something I actually did was I did a lesson on STEM engineering with fairy tales. And it was the houses for the 3 little pigs. I'll explain that more. Now that was cross-curricular. It was ELA with the language acquisition. You could do graphic organizers for problem solving. They also had to use math to figure out how to build the houses. And it was very challenging, but they run with it. They run with it.
Can we read that for you?
Yes.
Young children are incredibly active learners, so we can start building their foundation in STEM at an early age.
Yes, my STEAM class in the summer is not for kindergarten, but I actually got a few kindergartners in it. And I realized directions don't always have to be written. They could be pictures, they could be signs or symbols. And that taught me something. It's surprising what the young ones can do when they're presented with a challenge. Also, our district has a lot of ESL learners. I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar with that. And it's great because I actually have a little girl who does not speak any English, but through pictures or very simple directions, they're able to achieve what the others do.
Yeah, on that note, real quick, we had 2 students move in from Turkey last year that did not speak any English at all, and they were scared to leave their father the first day of school. And we have a brick maker space with a Minecraft lab, and so we were talking to our counselor, trying to get the kids calmed down, and they heard me say Minecraft. They go, Minecraft? And they were like, yeah, Minecraft upstairs. And they're like, bye-bye. And they went upstairs. And they was the first week of school, they played Minecraft the first week, just to get used to the school, so it's a big thing, yes.
And if you just see on the slide, that's just like a task card that would have them do very simple directions, and they go right to it. The next one is a good example. This was bridge building, and I had the kindergartners, and I had through 3rd grade. And STEM doesn't know an age. You can be whatever age. You just bring it to the table, your creativity, your ideas, and that's what happened here. That was one of my most memorable experiments. They did a fabulous job. I couldn't even imagine.
I love that comment. STEM does not have an age.
It does not.
Rochelle's writing that down already.
And the expectations, when you keep them high, like we always do as educators, they reach them. This is tough for me, and I know for other teachers too. And I had to put it with the M, make time. Very hard to do because you know the test is coming up, you know you have to cover all this before Thursday, there's an assembly and something else, but you have to make time for it. At Montour, we're lucky enough to have a STEAM class as a special. I know we're very grateful for that. We have 2 STEAM teachers. We also have a brick maker space that Justin mentioned earlier. It's actually a huge Lego room with bins of Legos and Duplo bricks, and you can bring your class up there to just explore and build. So I know we're very lucky with that.
That's it for your presentation. Anything else you want to add as far as within your classroom, anything you forgot to say?
I do work a lot with the young ones. With partners, individual challenges, and group challenges. I feel it's very important to start that at an early age, like I had mentioned. They're not born with knowing how to work with another person. So I do partner, I do group and individual, and give them a variety of experiences.
That's awesome. And another reason why Alyssa's here is because something JC said about you have to, as an educator, take risk if you want your students to take risk. And Alyssa, you don't know about this, but I have your going down the slide during fun day with the kids.
I do.
So you got to get out there and lead by example, right? Have fun with the kids. And that's why you're such an amazing teacher, and we're thankful at your Montour School District. So thank you. Yeah, you know you can. Yeah, of course.
I want to go.
This next question we're going to actually pass down to Dr. Diane Fine of California University of Pennsylvania. And Dr. Fine, my question for you, and we've known each other for a couple of years, and you're just doing such a tremendous job to get future educators involved in STEM education. So what at the higher education level, at the higher education institutions, are you doing to prepare the future and current educators to be STEM ready?
It's funny, I listen to what everyone here is saying, and I'm trying to teach those pre-service teachers who are 18, I did have 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. They're coming to us without this background, for the most part, unless they've gone to a school like Montour, Elizabeth Forward, one of those more progressive schools, and not all of them do. So what I'm doing with young adults is exactly what we're talking about here. In our undergraduate integrative STEM education class, which all of our pre-K through 4 and middle level candidates take, I'm doing STEM challenges every day. I'm teaching them that failure is a part of learning. Because higher ed, if they don't get an A or A plus on everything, it's the end of the world. And so I have to step back and teach them how to fail. So we do our hands-on STEM challenges in class, and they throw a fit when they're so competitive, and they throw a fit when their structure or whatever it is they're building, their bridge, doesn't win. No, it's about failure. Now, let's reiterate. Let's go back and do it again. So I'm literally teaching these pre-service teachers how to become these types of teachers. We talk a lot about the 4 C's. We talk about being innovators. We talk about critical thinking and problem solving. So it's really helping them understand what you are doing. And so for me, the most important thing I can do in higher ed is partner with you. I do a lot of work with Justin. I do a lot of work with Elizabeth Forward School District and Todd Kirshman, who's superintendent there. But it's those partnerships. I am constantly seeking partnerships with schools. I just had a phone call yesterday morning as I was leaving the office. Dr. Richard Dow at Mon Valley School, part of IU3. I'm working with them. And so I try to work with you, with the teachers, with those of you who are in the classrooms innovating, because I'm not inventing anything new at Cal U. I'm trying to prepare my students for your world. And so showing them what's going on in the real world, how to do these challenges. We've realigned our undergraduate program so that every one of our candidates, pre-K through 4 and middle level, graduates with the PDE Integrative STEM Education endorsement. And so along those lines, we've also revised our STEM education graduate program. We have a master's degree in integrative STEM education. And we have fabulous adjuncts such as Dr. Justin Alio, who teaches
If you want to sign up,
in that.
sign up next semester. Keep
2
my
of those
job.
courses. Dr. Gershkin teaches in that program. But we try to use adjuncts who are in the classrooms and in the schools and working for districts who know what's going on. Because the time is now. We have to stop teaching with worksheets and going to Teachers Pay Teachers and downloading a packet of worksheets and giving kids busy work. We've got to get them collaborating, teach children how to work together. Because they don't know how to collaborate. They cannot save Sam together with those little, you all done the Saving Sam challenge. It's the first one I give my undergrads, and they freak out because they cannot collaborate together to save Sam. And so we do those kinds of things. And so that's what our master's degree program is all about, inviting practicing teachers to come back to Cal U to work on that master's degree. And we also have a 4-credit certificate where you can just take the 12 credits that PDE requires to earn that integrated STEM education endorsement that you can add to existing teaching placements. So we try to look from that higher ed perspective. We try to peek in to see what you are doing in the real world and align our work, because we're always behind. For some reason, higher ed's always behind, and it drives me crazy. And I'm trying to solve that problem. I haven't yet figured out how to do that. But it's by being at these kinds of events and talking with teachers. But it's those partnerships. Without you, without your ideas and you sharing what you're doing, reading your books that you're publishing, we don't have any secrets to solving the world. We need you to help us solve that problem. So it's all about working with you. And so please be in touch. Share with us what you're doing, because we need you in order to be successful in preparing our pre-service teachers and our practicing teachers for this innovative approach. There's pockets of it. Pennsylvania, this corner, Pennsylvania is amazing to see what's happening. So
I'm curious, are the students that come to you, are they receptive with this, or are they kind of just still kind of boxed in a little bit, saying, no, that's not how I learn?
They're afraid.
Okay.
They're afraid.
Yeah, because you think they're young, they're
Right.
technology.
Well, failure is such a huge challenge for them. They don't know the technology well, so my colleague and I are here trying to learn the technology because we want to show them what's out there. So they're receptive, they're excited, but they're a little bit afraid. So
Yeah.
it takes some time to break down those that failure.
That's
How
amazing.
to fail, and I saw him talk
Well,
about
you keep saying the word failure, even from the very youngest level, kindergarten.
absolutely.
We tell our students fail means first attempt in learning.
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
if you put that in their mindset, hopefully,
Right.
they'll say, okay, this is my first attempt.
Exactly. Thank you.
Attempt in learning.
What certifications are available?
This is Dr. Eric Sparkenbaum, my colleague at Montour School District. I'm an elementary education curriculum director, and he's our secondary.
Oh,
I am,
Glad you're here.
I am so lucky I get to work with Justin every day.
Every day.
And he has this energy and passion every day.
And kudos back to you.
Thanks, but what certifications are available to potential teachers for the STEM areas?
Well, if we're looking at secondary ed, there are, of course, we have the Master of Arts teaching, so there is the secondary technology, physics, chemistry, biology, any of those content areas. So you can earn an MAT in the specific STEM content areas. Or that we also have a brand new MAT in computer science, which PD just released that framework December 2018, I believe. So we have a new computer science MAT. We also have a MAT tech education, technology education.
And you said there's that endorsement as well?
Yes,
It's not an actual certificate, it's like a middle school subject area endorsement?
Yeah, for PDE there are two options. There's your teacher certification areas where you're earning your initial teacher certification, which would be pre-K through 4, middle level.
And most of our tech, or most of our STEAM teachers usually have like a business.
Right. Well, then they need to come back to CalU and take our 12 credit PDE STEM endorsement. The endorsement is an add-on to your teaching certificate, so it doesn't entitle you to teach in a specific certification area, but what it shows is that you have additional coursework that specializes in this particular area. So there are endorsements through PDE for instructional coaching, teacher leadership, STEM, gifted.
What about elementary and middle level STEM teachers? What do you see most of them having? What is their area of certification generally?
Usually for elementary it's pre-K through 4. They have that certification, but if they come to CalU for their pre-service, for their undergraduate, they leave with the STEM endorsement as well. So they have 4 courses that help prepare them for this innovative approach to teaching. So they graduate with their pre-K through 4 initial teacher certification and this STEM endorsement add-on. And a lot of the schools in the region, Vet Center is one that comes to mind. They're looking for STEM teachers, and when they're looking for STEM teachers, they say, hey, come to us with that STEM endorsement, because that shows that you're more qualified than someone who's just graduated pre-K through 4. And for the middle level, it's the same. Our middle level, grades 4 through 8 teacher candidates have the middle level teaching certificate and a concentration area. So they may choose math as their concentration or ELA, but they also earn that STEM endorsement.
Thank you. A lot of our teachers helped develop the STEM program and did a lot of on-the-job training.
Absolutely. And that's
But I'm
what's
looking for like the new ones. What
Yeah.
certification should we be looking for?
Yeah, look for
What
that STEM
endorsements?
endorsement. Not
Okay.
not all universities are offering it now, but it's growing. So if I were a school looking to hire, I'd be looking for that STEM endorsement. Because that means they just have a little extra coursework that's preparing them for
But
this.
there's not a cert yet.
No certification yet. It was my understanding through PDE, as soon as they put out the computer science certification, STEM was next. So it's coming that it will be a full certification line, just, PDE, well, hopefully we don't. But if you apply for anything through TIMS, you know PDE. It takes months to get your certification renewed. It's a slow process, but I expect it in a year or 2, I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dane. We're going to actually come back to you. We're going to pass it down to Gina right now. Can we give another round of applause for Gina this morning? Get Innovator of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania. What an honor that is. Thank you, Gina. actually have your picture from this morning.
Yeah,
up
how
there,
did you
too.
do that? That was like an hour
It's,
ago.
it's I copy, save, what? Crazy technology, right? It's no, but so Gina, again, I get the pleasure of working with Gina on an everyday basis. One of those teachers, just amazing things happen in class. And you know, I was on a panel discussion about 5 years ago at Carnegie Mellon University, and I was last like Gina, and they asked all these questions. How do you increase academic achievement and raise test scores in your school district? Everyone went down and said, you know, we look at select our programs, what ed tech products we have, but no one said like people. And I was kind of got to me, I was like, holy cow! Like if you have teachers that are like doing amazing things, and you give them just the opportunity just to be you, and students will run to your class, teachers will be energetic, and test scores will go up every single time. It's not about the stuff, it's about the people. So we're very lucky to work with Gina every day. And Gina, the question I have for you is, as an English teacher, department chair, how do you incorporate STEM into literacy and vice versa? And give us one or two examples how you do that on an everyday basis, or not an everyday, just whenever you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting topic, just because when you think about STEM and you talk about STEM, English normally isn't the front runner subject, similar to Spanish, but it's difficult because it doesn't give so easily to that subject, and it was difficult for me at first to jump into this idea of using this technology and being STEM oriented and, you know, creating these activities and these challenges for my kids in a literature classroom. But really, when you think about it, literacy makes up everything else. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you don't have that understanding and the ability to integrate the technology into a class, like an ELA classroom or literature, you're going to be missing pieces for everything else down the road. So, you know, I actually had an experience a few years ago, and I saw Jennifer in the back, and she was there during that. But I went to a summit, and I met some really great ELA teachers that had some awesome ideas, and it was just kind of a springboard for everything, you know, from then until now. A lot of failure, a lot of trial and error. I struggled with giving up some of the literature or some of the traditional ELA pieces to allow them to create different projects and different ideas. I'm getting over that now, that it's been a few years. But, you know, so my kids are 15 and 16. I have sophomores. They come to me each year with a higher knowledge of technology than what I have. And I think because they've been around technology since they were born, like when I tell them we didn't have cell phones in high school, like they think I'm lying. They don't believe me. Because they've had a cell phone since they can remember, you know, and they're constantly watching videos, and they're online, and they're doing all of these different things. And I think as teachers, if we don't tap into that interest, like forget the subjects and the, you know, the standards and the tests and all of that, but if you don't use that and you don't tap into their interest, I think you're doing them and yourself a disservice, because they're not going to be with you. You know, the more technology you can give them, the more project-based, the more activities where you have them creating and collaborating, even though sometimes they don't like to. But, you know, the more you can get them working together and using the technology that they like, the more receptive they're going to be to the standards that I give them, and, you know, the test prep and the literature and Shakespeare and all of that other fun stuff that I throw in there. You have to tap into their interests, because if not, they're going to be there with you, and we're all going to move through the motions, and that's kind of going to be the end of it. So, you want some examples?
Yeah, give me an example. I know you have some exciting things that you do in your class.
We create a lot of web pages. I found that for writing portfolios, instead of having it on a Google Drive or in a folder, having them create some kind of organic working web page that they can constantly go back and revise and take with them. I let them add pictures and, you know, some of their own stuff in there too, but it kind of gives them like an e-space online that's theirs, and then they have that to follow them as they go. And then for me, it houses all of their writing, so I can go back and tap into that. You know, something as easy as an informative writing piece, which we do a couple of at the high school level. Instead of letting them pick a topic, I have them code first, and then they write the informative piece about the coding. So it's about the process of, you know, working through the code, whatever it is that we're doing. You know, how they did it, the process of it, the troubleshooting. Did they have trouble working together? Were there group members that were an issue? And then that easily ties into a reflective piece as well, so it's kind of twofold. But they're much more interested in writing about technology and coding than they are any other informative topic, really. So I find overall the papers are better. So I get a better end result because they're writing about something that they're interested in.
Awesome. Now I have just a couple follow-up questions. We're going to turn over to the questions here. Just a general question for everybody. Before STEM was named STEM, do you know what the name of STEM was when it originally started? SMET, yeah. They just changed the letters, S-M-E-T. And the government said, that's what they ranked them in importance. So science and math and engineering and technology. But the marketing people were like, I don't know about this from the government. So then eventually, a couple years later, they switched it to STEM. And there's also first introduced the teaching silos. You're supposed to teach STEM here, technology, engineering, and math. And over time, they said, well, I don't know. It's supposed to be maybe taught together, interdisciplinary, and so forth like that. You know, and to collaborate together. So my question to the panel up here is, we'll start Gina and kind of work her way back. I did not give you this ahead of time, so if you don't know the answer, just pass the mic. But think of one opportunity you had to partner, collaborate with an organization, with a peer, and talk about that just for a minute, or talk about maybe a tip you have for collaborating and partnering with somebody. So give a quick example or just a tip people can have to collaborate and partner, because that came up over and over again as we went through this. Again, just a quick minute, just pass the mic down to JC.
I have a comment too.
Yeah.
Before that STEM, remember the technology piece was the T of that BCIT cert.
Yeah.
So it was like before STEM was a thing, it was business, which I find to be interesting because that's kind of like pulled away.
Yeah. You have a cool partnership you have right now with Ozobox.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that or something else, or KTI, something?
I was thinking actually more like project based.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we have a great community collaboration going with one of the real estate companies in our area. And those guys are on board to come in and view presentations, sit on a panel like this, you know, for the kids to present. They're willing to give them real topics to work on and real projects to work on. So I think it gives a little more value to them working together as a group because it's real people other than me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you bring somebody in from the outside that's not, you know, they act differently. You know, they're like, they start showing off, you know, but it's different. Like while I'll get a good response, you know, you bring somebody in from the outside that's going to give them feedback and they're not a teacher. It's like they value that differently. So I think that's important to get other outside pieces of that collaboration as well.
Any administrators in here? So I don't know if you work for real estate agents or not. We do a lot, and it's true. Since they can come into the school and know what they can talk about to their customers, actually your market value goes up in your district. It's a fact. So just a little tip there. As long as you bring them in, give them examples, they can promote that for you.
It's a good field though, because they have, like, they touch a wide variety of subjects. So it's just a good field to have those outside people.
Thank you. Alyssa, a tip or an example?
With
Yeah.
collaboration, a willingness is very important, and I actually will get with the kids in working groups also, and I try to model how to troubleshoot if someone's not agreeing. What else can we do? How can we solve this among each other in a nice way? But I do know they relate to that because I'm real. I try to be very real with them, and you know, I tell them situations where I might have to collaborate, and you may not always agree with the person, or they may not be your best friend. But this is something. It is a skill. It takes practice. But we work on that through our whole lives.
Yeah, awesome. Because I'm a big believer in if you want kids to be good collaborators 2 years from now, you have to do it today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Sooner the better.
Thank you. Diane.
I'm thinking about our partnership. I just wanted to share our partnership that we got going on at CalU. We're working with NCASE, which is the National Center for the Advancement of STEM Education, and they actually partner with the Department of Defense. And so we have a summer STEM institute that's going on at CalU. We're in our second year, and we're preparing teachers to teach STEM challenges in the classroom. It's all high school, middle level and high school teachers. But what the DoD is looking for is they're looking for engineers to work for them. And so they're working with you, with teachers, to identify students who are in high school right now who can work for the military, work for the Department of Defense. So it's a pretty amazing opportunity. I'm blown away because I come to this from an elementary perspective. I taught first grade for most of my career and then transitioned to the middle school. So working with this group and seeing what they're doing to prepare high schoolers for these jobs that we can't even imagine what they'll be doing in 5 years, let alone 10 or 15 years. So seeing what some of these amazing groups are doing with high school students is incredible. So it's an exciting opportunity. So if your school asks for teachers to come and join the CalU Summer STEM Institute over the next couple of years. I know last year and this year we worked with California area, Brownsville, and Trinity. I believe we're bringing in Fraser, but we're looking for high school teachers, and NCASE pays for it. They pay for you to come to CalU for 2 weeks, train you how to teach their STEM challenges, and then give you the materials to take back to your school. So it's quite an opportunity.
Thanks, Diane. That's exciting. Rochelle, an example or a tip on collaboration and partnerships?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things come to mind. I mean, as educators, finding opportunities just like this at conferences to connect, and I know just on Sunday the KTI had a pre-con, we did STEM challenges, and last year they did the same thing, and the prior year. So for me, like, I had never done any of those, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with these cups or whatever? But you experience what it will be like for your students, and you can get all these ideas really quickly to take back to your classrooms or with your teachers, whoever you're working with. The same thing with PAECT has opportunities, Remake Learning. With ABC Create, I know my school goes in, like in the spring and the fall, they have a convening, and so different school districts come in, so you get to see what they're doing, and then make those connections and learn from them. But another thing too, I'll say back to project-based learning, for my students, I connected with schools in Argentina and Spain, using technology with Edmodo, and then we did like Flipgrid and all of these different tools. And the thing about it is, like, tech is great as long as you have a reason for using it. And for me to be able to take my students and have them connect with students from like the other side of the world, across the world, but to work together on a project like they were interested in, or to solve a problem, or to look at, like, we do the Teach SDGs and global goals and everything. And so to be able to use technology where you can have students working together, not from their same school, it's just amazing what you can do. It just takes, and you don't have to do all of those things. It's like, just pick one thing, because otherwise you're like, oh my gosh, there's too much, I'm not doing anything, which is what I did for like a long time. So not doing that is my tip. Do not put yourself in isolation. Just find a way to connect. Yeah.
That's right. The future of education depends on the strongest of partnerships. JC, tip or example of a collaboration partnership?
Yeah, so most of my teaching and leading experience was here in Allegheny County. I've only been in Hopewell for the last 5 years, and we're in Beaver County. And I felt a real difference in the transition because there was not as much of a connected network in Beaver County. And so one of the first things that I did when I arrived there, I had lunch with somebody from another school district, and she and I decided to partner together. So we created a consortium between Hopewell Area School District, Beaver Area, and Rochester School District. And we do shared professional development together. We do shared grant writing work together. We share our resources, our ideas. And so that has positioned us to do some great work around things with technology, and especially with partnerships. So we have partnerships with Eaton Engineers. I would encourage everybody here, if partnering with other agencies is something that you want to do. I mean, the way that we started, we literally sat down and pulled up Google Maps and said, what are all of the things that are in our region? And I'm talking about like mom and pop shops, big corporations, manufacturers, higher ed, like what's around us. And we reached out to them and just said, hey, we'd like to partner with you. In what ways do you think you can support us? And sometimes that's mentorship, sometimes that's internships, sometimes that's, a panel or career speaking or something like that. Sometimes it's funding, sometimes it's materials and resources. But you have to start that conversation because they're out there wanting to support what's happening in your school. Sometimes they just don't know how. So through our consortium, we've been able to reach out to a lot of organizations. We have a great partnership with Ardex, which does all kinds of flooring, which maybe sounds limited, but it's not, because they have a plant right in Beaver County that does everything from research and development to marketing to fabrication, and they invite us to be a part of their work. So we can take kids there, we take teachers there, and it has allowed them to see so many different aspects of STEM really in action. And our students especially can see, like, well, maybe I don't think I'm going to be a scientist, but boy, I love this piece of what I saw in this manufacturing plant. And again, we've tried to sort of conquer that by being 3 districts strong, and we're not very large school districts, but we kind of pool our resources and have been able to create a lot of really great connections that have made new programs for our schools. It's brought a lot of funding. I'll just say last year we were able to secure a PA Smart Advancing grant, so we shared in a $500,000 grant to move some of that in our county. And so if it weren't for those partnerships and those initial conversations that we had, we wouldn't be in the position to leverage that kind of work for our kids.
Thank you. We've got about 10, 12 minutes left. I'm going to ask the audience if you have any questions for our panel at this time. If not, I have some more questions, but any questions for our audience at this time? Maybe 5 really talented. Yes?
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Klein was saying about the summer institute that you were having. I used to teach down in Southern Maryland. And
Me too. Where?
Charles County.
Me too. Yeah.
What
Wait.
school?
McDonough High School.
Okay, I was at Stone.
Oh my goodness,
When were
crazy.
you down there?
Like last century. 01 to 08.
Okay, I started in 06.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I used to teach at the high school. Up here, I've been online for the last 3 years, but I taught traditional tech ed, and you guys were talking about STEM and STEAM and everything. Well, my undergrad program, let's see if you guys know this, industrial arts.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't even STEM yet, but so yeah, I used to do the revised scope with the kids in the engineering class that I was teaching. We partnered with, there were a lot of military bases around the area, Indian Head Naval Base and a couple others, and during all those competitions, they would come, show off what it was that they were doing, and actively engage in the instructors and the students, letting them know, what's going on, where it is they're moving to, how it is that they're interacting, what it is that they're producing to, keep the military personnel out of harm's way, and also offering the students opportunity, saying, hey, do this, follow this pathway, 4 years, you're done. We can go wherever we want to go. So that it's a huge thing for anybody teaching computer science or engineering, for that matter. So that was a good time. I enjoyed it. Up here on computer science, it's a whole new animal.
Yeah.
I'm learning that.
Well, use them as a resource, and thank you for sharing that. It's a great story, and Charles County. Yeah, it's amazing. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Please share. Yes, up front.
I just had a quick question for your thoughts about assessment in this area.
Thoughts on assessments within this area? Are you relating to like state assessments or?
No, not so much. Just meaningful assessment.
Oh, the good assessments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The good assessments. Any comment?
More open-ended kind of.
Yeah. I think it's a great example. So as you know, you can teach as much as you want, but if we don't assess the right way, it's tough to. Any examples of a good way to assess or?
I think when you start to pull away from that traditional form of assessment with tests and papers and things of that sort, I think it's important to have
a solid rubric system, one that's fair and consistent, but that can be changed per your project.
I don't know if anyone has anything to add on that, but I think, you know, knowing ahead of time what they're getting into, and what your expectations are, it still leaves you some wiggle room based on the project and what they're doing and, you know, how far they achieve or, you know, how much failure you need to catch up on. But I found breaking away from that traditional assessment that like a solid rubric plan is what works best for me.
What about second chance learning when it comes to assessments? And Alyssa, please comment first. I'm sorry about that.
Well, what I do, I have a little section at the very end after the rubric. How well did you and your group members work together? And it's a smiley system. Could you have done better? Could your group have done better? Something you did really well. And I look at that. And then I will talk to them as a group. You know, this is something I know we're growing in. This is something we need to grow more in. But I tell them this is the time you just let me know your thoughts. They don't have to write their names, even though I know their handwriting. But it's just very honest. How do you feel you did?
That's tough for them to do sometimes.
It takes a long time, and you have to teach them how to do that too.
Anyone else? Not question about assessments.
I was just going to make a plug for a class that we have at Cal U called Innovative Measures of Learning, and it's taught by And that's what it's what it's all about, finding those innovative ways to measure. We can't measure their mathematical knowledge or their science knowledge on a paper pencil test, but they're applying it. So it's all about that rubric and making sure that information's embedded there.
I think it's about practical assessments, like, okay, you learned it.
Right.
Now what are you going to do with it? And in that class at Cal U, we actually, one of the assignments is, let's create a class resource list through a shared Google Doc, and at the end we have come up with a 25-page book on shared resources as a class that they get graded on, but at the end they can print off and use within their schools. I mean, it's that simple sometimes.
Got to get innovative and convince the state to move away from PSSA testing to prove. It's not prove. People who pass that can't get a job because they can't collaborate. But they can take a test.
That's cool. So. Very neat. Any? You want to mention that?
No, because I mean, I have nothing. No, I do very similar to what you both said in my classes. What?
You do have something.
Well, I mean, I always can, I guess, but a lot of what I used to always have like a rubric, and I would assess them, and it was, I know it's terrible, like creativity. Like I gave them points on their creativity. I'm like, who does
great.
That? No, I don't do that anymore. But a lot of the feedback is from the students, like the peers giving peer feedback, and we do Google forms and things like that, and we have conversations. And I have had students who would just say to their peers at varying times in doing project-based learning, like, that was boring. They would say to the person who presented, like, that was boring. I was bored. You were very clearly bored. Like, what is your problem? And I'm like, I can't believe you just said that. She goes, I'm a senior. I can say whatever I want. And I'm like, okay. But she said to this student, like, well, how did you feel? And he's like, yeah, I was kind of, it didn't go, it was more of a project and project-based learning, so it's part of that. He's like, well, then I failed. And we're like, well, no, you didn't fail. It's like, what can you do to improve? So getting the students to evaluate themselves and to self-assess and all that is so important too. It is hard to come up with rubrics. And I'm definitely always learning how to do it better. But yeah, that's all I've got right now.
Yeah. That's good.
I feel, for me, that's why I'm really passionate about maker education and how STEM can merge with maker, because I believe that the content, science, technology, engineering, whatever you believe are the arts, and math, you can learn all of that content in a really integrated way, but unless you pair it with making, to me that's the application. So you can learn all the best things in science class and math class, but can you combine that knowledge and make something to show that you understand? So in all of the school districts that I've worked in, I've pushed having dedicated maker spaces, because I believe that's when the kids get the chance to really show you. You know, how do you know if they understood what they learned in physics unless you give them a chance to create something that shows those principles that you try to teach them? So I'm really passionate about making sure that kids have something in their hands to build, hack, construct, whatever, to demonstrate that they know the concepts.
So JC, if you can hold that mic, because if you want to ask any questions, we're wrapping up right now, you can come up after and ask, but just real quick, somebody asked me this in the hallway. They said, Justin, have you ever been to ISTE before? I said, yes. What can you learn from that conference? I was like, well, it's any other, like this conference, it's about, to me, it's about connecting with people. I can go to sessions and I learn a couple things, but It's about connecting, and they say, why do you get up and present sometimes? And I said, I present all the times when I go to conferences now because I get the chance to tell our story so people don't, not know our story, but make up their own story. So just real quick, what's the best way for everyone here, us, when they leave here, to go connect with people? Why is that so important in education? Because conferences, yes, you're going to learn one or two things. But if you connect, you'll learn 100 things. So.
Well, you said when they leave here, so I think I'm going to correct you if
Please,
I may.
yeah, please. I felt. Please,
And one
I'm
of our participants walked out, but while she was in here, she started following me on Twitter. For me, I mean, if you're not connected on social media, that's something you can do right now in this session. Like, you don't have to walk away or
Just
do
now,
this
yeah.
at home. If you're not connected, you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage as well as your students. Being on Twitter and being able to connect with the touch of a button to people across the globe has allowed me to be a better leader. I mean, you talk about ISTE and other conferences, and I am blessed to be able to do that and speak across the country. And more important than the Twitter connections is making those face-to-face. So if you see somebody here who's posting about something great, if there's somebody on the panel, have a conversation with them, because that connection that you make, you don't know what potential that has in the future. I mean, I had Rochelle come and speak in my school district 3 or 4 years ago because I reached out to her on social media, and we're friends and we talk very often now. And it's because we just had that one initial meeting that kind of spurred a friendship. And I'm lucky to be able to learn so much from the work that she does, and it's because of that social media connection.
Awesome. Well, it is 11:45. I'm going to respect your time. If you have any other questions, please come up. But a round of applause for our panel up here. Thank you. And have a good rest of the conference. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, really? Between that and I want to come to your house on a Sunday and pasta day.
Yeah.
Actually, I want you to meet my husband. I remember when you did that at the Ed camp that one, you remember? Without the big blue license.
Very nice.
See.
Oh,
We got the big blue light.
no, it's taking a picture of me. Oh, that's good. Great, thank you.
Picture of you would be that, yeah. Take you out.
Thanks, Eric, for sticking around.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. That's fine.